The storm rolled in just after sunset. Lightning cracked across the California sky, illuminating the sprawling Lockhart estate perched on the cliffs of Monterey like a predator watching its prey. Inside, the chandelier-lit ballroom glittered with the clink of champagne flutes, designer gowns, and secrets nobody dared to speak out loud. They had gathered to celebrate the 30th birthday of America's most elusive heiress, Vivian Lockhart, the last bloodline of the billion-dollar Lockhart fortune. But Vivian wasn't celebrating. Upstairs, behind the locked doors of her father's study, she was negotiating a deal that would either save her legacy, or destroy everything her family had built. Across from her sat Darren Cole, a corporate wolf in a tailored Tom Ford suit, with eyes that looked like they were carved from ice. He was the kind of man who didn't knock, he took. And tonight, he wanted the mansion, the shares, and the last name that came with it. "You signed this deal, Vivian," he said, sliding a folder across the mahogany desk, "and your debts disappear. All of them. Your sister's rehab, the lawsuit, the stock plunge, clean slate." Vivian stared at the paper, her heart pounding harder than the rain against the window. The mansion smelled of old wood and betrayal. She didn't trust Darren. Not for a second. But after her father's sudden death 6 months ago and the financial vultures circling, she was bleeding options. "This house isn't just property," she said slowly. "It's the only thing that still feels like my father. Like home." "You want memories? Keep a photo," Darren snapped. "You want your future? Sign." Vivian's pen trembled in her hand. She glanced toward the fireplace, where a portrait of her father loomed, stern, powerful, untouchable. Until someone touched him. He had been found dead in a conservatory, a glass of brandy in hand and no sign of struggle. Natural causes, they had said. A heart attack. But Vivian knew her father never drank brandy. She signed. Darren smiled. But neither of them knew someone had been listening. Before we delve deeper, kindly subscribe, like and comment your thoughts in the comments section. At 3:42 a.m., the police were called. A maid, screaming hysterically, had discovered Darren Cole's body in the garden maze, stabbed once in the neck, the knife still protruding, his blood pooling beneath marble statues of Greek gods. No signs of struggle. Just like her father. Detective Riley Monet arrived at dawn, a trench coat shielding her from the coastal wind. She'd worked high-profile murders before, but there was something about this case, about this family, that sank its claws into her. "Where were you between midnight and 3, Ms. Lockhart?" she asked Vivian in the parlor, where the fire had long gone cold. Vivian didn't flinch. "In my father's study. Alone. Reviewing documents." "There are cameras, detective." "There are," Riley said. But the feed went dark between 12:47 and 1:16. Power glitch. Odd coincidence. Vivian stared, lips pressed together. The detective wasn't accusing her, not yet, but the implication hung in the air like smoke. Later that day, the autopsy came in. Darren's time of death, 1:03 a.m. And on his phone, the last message he typed, unsent, read. "She knows. She has proof. I shouldn't have." 3 days later, Vivian stood before the family lawyer, learning that Darren had made a critical error in the contract, a clause that reverted control of the Lockhart estate back to her in the event of his death. All assets, stocks, properties, holdings, were now under Vivian's name. Public sympathy turned her into a phoenix. The media spun the tragedy into a comeback story. Heiress overcomes corporate betrayal, while Wall Street applauded her resilience. Her father's legacy surged in value. But Detective Riley wasn't convinced. She returned to the mansion unannounced, holding a small evidence bag containing a gold pendant soaked in dried blood. It had been found near Darren's body, buried under a rose bush. It was engraved with the Lockhart family crest. Vivian went pale. "That necklace belongs to my sister, Helena," she whispered. "She wore it everywhere. She was at the party. She's supposed to be in rehab. Riley's eyes narrowed. Where is Helena now? She left yesterday. Said she needed air. Riley's jaw tightened. We need to find her. Now. That night, Vivian sat alone in the garden maze, staring at the statue where Darren's blood had dried into the marble's cracks. Wind whispered through the hedges. She thought of her father, stern, unreachable, and Darren, arrogant and greedy. She thought of Helena, always teetering between chaos and collapse. And for the first time in weeks, she let herself cry. You wanted to protect us, she said aloud, looking toward the stars. But you left us nothing but war. A rustle in the bushes stopped her breath. Then a voice, soft, broken, whispered, I did it for you. Vivian turned slowly. Helena stepped from the shadows. Hair unkempt. Eyes wild. She wore the same dress from the party, stained and wrinkled. In her hand, the blood-soaked pendant. I couldn't let him take it all from you, she said. From us. Vivian stumbled back, her face contorted in horror. Helena, what did you do? Her sister's lip trembled. He poisoned Dad. I saw the bottle. I found the receipts. He was going to kill you too. Vivian gasped, the pieces snapping together like a cruel puzzle. You killed him. I saved you. Vivian backed toward the statue. No, Helena. You've destroyed us both. Helena's eyes burned. You signed that contract. You gave him everything. I took it back. Behind them, a camera's infrared light blinked in the dark. Detective Riley was watching. Before we delve deeper, kindly subscribe, like and comment your thoughts in the comments section. Who do you think really killed Darren? The morning after Helena's confession, the sun rose over the Lockhart estate like a cruel joke, too golden, too calm, as if it hadn't witnessed a murder blooming beneath its hedges just hours before. Vivian hadn't slept. Her sister's words kept echoing. I did it for you. Helena had fled before the police arrived, disappearing through the back garden and vanishing into the dawn fog. Vivian didn't tell Detective Monet. Not yet. She couldn't. Not until she understood how far this madness stretched. And there was still one place in the mansion no one had searched, not the police, not Darren, not even Vivian herself. Her father's private study on the 4th floor. The door had been locked since his death. The key, supposedly lost. But Vivian knew better. Her father didn't believe in accidents, only strategy. He would have hidden the truth somewhere only she could find it. So at 2:14 a.m., with the house asleep and her nerves frayed, she stood before that oak door, a bobby pin in one hand and a letter opener in the other. The lock clicked open like it had been waiting. The room was a time capsule. Dust floated in the moonlight spilling through the windows. Everything smelled of tobacco and old paper. His desk sat untouched, the chair pushed slightly back, like he'd just stepped out for coffee. But Vivian's eyes were drawn to the wall. Behind a glass display hung 3 war medals, awards she'd seen 1,000 times, but tonight, the second one looked crooked. She stepped closer, heart thudding. With trembling hands, she twisted the medal. The wall panel behind it slid open with a soft groan. Inside, wrapped in cracked leather and tied with a red silk ribbon, lay her father's diary. She stayed up all night reading it. By sunrise, Vivian had uncovered more than she bargained for. Her father had known Darren was trying to buy out Lockhart Holdings. He'd suspected foul play. But worse, he believed someone inside the family was helping Darren from the beginning. Vivian's name appeared twice. Not in blame, but as a warning. If I die suddenly, don't trust anyone, not even blood. Beneath that, the initials HL. Helena Lockhart. Vivian's hands shook as she turned the final page. It wasn't Darren who poisoned her father. It was Helena. By the time Detective Riley returned that afternoon, Vivian had aged a decade. The detective held up a clear plastic bag. Inside, the blood-soaked gold pendant. "We ran it," Riley said. "Your sister's prints, as expected, but we also found yours." Vivian's face remained still. "She gave it to me the night he died," Vivian said. "Before she ran." Riley arched a brow. "She confessed to killing Darren. But she didn't confess to poisoning your father." Vivian didn't blink. "Because she didn't see it as murder. She saw it as a rescue." Riley leaned in. "Do you?" Silence. Vivian stared past the detective, through the window, to where the garden maze stood, deceptive in its beauty. "She was always broken," she said quietly. "But none of us thought she was dangerous." Helena's arrest came 2 days later, in an abandoned beach house just outside Santa Cruz. She didn't resist. Didn't cry. Just looked at Vivian through the police car window and whispered, "You're safe now." Vivian wanted to scream. To demand answers. But part of her already knew, Helena hadn't killed Darren to protect her. She killed him to own her. With Darren gone and Helena in custody, the board of Lockhart Holdings unanimously voted Vivian in as CEO. The media devoured her redemption arc, the heiress turned savior, the sister who weathered scandal with dignity. But behind closed doors, Vivian wasn't celebrating. She was decoding. Her father's diary mentioned someone else. A code name. VK, described as the architect of the fall. Not Darren. Not Helena. Someone bigger. Someone still watching. 3 weeks later, a sealed envelope arrived at the mansion. No return address. Inside, a single photograph. Vivian, in the garden, arguing with Helena, moments before the hidden camera recorded their exchange. Only this photo was taken from a different angle. A third perspective. Behind them, barely visible, stood a man in a dark coat and sunglasses, watching from the hedges. Vivian's blood turned cold. Attached to the photo was a note. "You're not done yet, Vivian. Justice has a longer memory than you think. VK. Asterisk. Before we delve deeper, kindly subscribe, like and comment your thoughts in the comments section. Who is VK? The photograph hadn't left Vivian's desk in 3 days. She kept it under a paperweight, beside her father's old fountain pen. It taunted her, a blurry image of her and Helena locked in a garden argument, and in the background, the shadowy figure in the hedges. A man. Watching. He didn't move. Didn't blink. But whoever he was, he had seen everything. And he was still out there. Vivian stared at the signature again, VK. Her father's diary described VK as the architect of the fall, a man operating beneath the surface, puppeteering both Darren's attempted takeover and Helena's descent into madness. Vivian hadn't told the police. She wasn't sure who she could trust. Even Detective Riley had gone silent. By Wednesday, the silence shattered. A maintenance worker discovered a second body. It was found behind the locked wine cellar of the Lockhart mansion. Someone had bricked up the back wall, a crude, sloppy cover-up in an otherwise pristine room. When the bricks were pulled loose, a wave of decay spilled out with it. The body was male. Early 40s. Cause of death, blunt force trauma to the head. And around his neck, tied with a leather cord, was a gold signet ring engraved with the Lockhart crest. Not just any ring. It belonged to Marshall Keating, Vivian's godfather. Her father's oldest friend. The company's former chief legal advisor. He'd gone missing 8 months ago, 2 weeks after her father's funeral. Everyone assumed he had run off with a younger woman to Europe. Vivian knew better now. Someone had buried him in her own house. Detective Riley returned that afternoon, and this time, she looked different. No notepad. No small talk. Just a cold stare and a folder she dropped on Vivian's desk. DNA came back, she said. Vivian opened the folder. Black and white morgue photos. Autopsy reports. And a single sticky note. He was trying to protect you. Vivian sat back, stunned. What are you saying? Riley folded her arms. I think your father was onto something bigger. Keating knew it. He tried to get the board to freeze the merger with Darren Cole. Days later, he disappears. And now he's found bricked into your basement. Vivian felt like the walls were shrinking. You think Helena did it? Riley shook her head slowly. No, she said. I think she was manipulated. And I think someone else is still inside your circle. Later that night, Vivian descended into the wine cellar alone. The crime scene tape had been removed, but the air still carried the sickly scent of rotten red wine. She walked to the bricked wall, now broken open and surrounded by forensic tags. Blood stains still marked the stone. The light overhead flickered. In her hand, she held Keating's ring. There were initials carved inside, to MK, from HL. Her mother. Vivian had barely spoken about her. Margaret Lockhart vanished when Vivian was 16, supposedly leaving her family behind for a quieter life. But now, Vivian wasn't so sure she had left at all. Upstairs, the fire crackled in her father's study. She poured herself a glass of his favorite scotch, no ice, and opened the final page of his diary. There, written in a rushed scrawl unlike the rest of the entries. If they find me, don't trust her. She'll come back when it's over. When it's safe. She always finishes what she starts. ML. Vivian dropped the glass. It shattered on the hardwood floor. Her mother. Her mother was VK. No, that wasn't right. VK was a man. The figure in the garden had broad shoulders, heavy boots. But what if? Vivian pulled the photo back out. Zoomed in on the face in the hedges. The nose. The jawline. The scar along the cheekbone. She'd seen that face before. Not in a family album. But in the hallway, 2 nights ago. He was the new estate manager. Hired 6 months ago by the board. Polite. Quiet. Spoke rarely. Handled logistics. She never paid him much attention. But his name wasn't in any of the files. And suddenly, Vivian remembered something Riley had said weeks ago. There's always a cleaner. Someone who scrubs things for the real mastermind. Vivian stood abruptly, heart racing. The wine cellar. Keating. Darren. Her father. None of them were accidents. This manager had been cleaning house, one by one. She rushed to the security room, booted up the internal system. Most of the cameras were offline, cut during Darren's murder. But one was still active. Camera 14, guest house hallway. She clicked. The screen flickered. And there he was. The estate manager, standing outside her late father's guest room, unlocking the door. In his hand was a burner phone. On the screen, the initials VK flashed briefly before disappearing into encrypted code. He stepped into the room, and pulled the door shut behind him. Vivian stared at the screen. Then, static. The camera cut. She backed away from the monitor slowly. She wasn't just being watched. She was being hunted. And she was next. As we navigate further, who is VK really? Tap the notification to unravel the ending. The mansion was quiet. Too quiet. Vivian Lockhart stood in the hallway outside her late father's guest room, gills silent against the polished floor. The lights flickered overhead, old wiring the estate manager had promised to fix weeks ago. He was inside. She could feel it. Behind that door, was the last living secret of the Lockhart dynasty. In her right hand, She held a revolver, vintage, heavy, once her father's. Loaded. In her left, the photograph. The one with Helena. The one with him in the hedges. She had watched the footage. Traced his name. Dug into the payroll files. There was no real ID. No past. Only an encrypted codename, VK. She knocked once. No answer. She pushed the door open. The room was neat. Too neat. Sunlight filtered through dusty curtains, catching motes in the air. The bed was untouched. No clothes. No travel bags. Just an old trunk in the corner. And standing beside it, the man. The so-called estate manager. Black coat. Scarred cheek. No surprise in his eyes. Like he had been waiting for her. "You found me," he said calmly. Vivian didn't lower the gun. "Who are you?" He smiled faintly, brushing imaginary dust off the trunk. "Call me what your father did," he said. "Victor Kingsley. Cleaner. Shadow. Insurance policy." Her hand trembled. "You killed Keating." Victor didn't flinch. "He found something he wasn't supposed to. Tried to protect your legacy." A shame. He had integrity. Vivian's jaw clenched. "And Darren? My sister? I merely offered Helena an exit. She chose to take it. Darren was already dead inside." Vivian aimed the gun higher. "My mother, was she part of this?" Victor's face changed, just slightly. "She built the Lockhart empire from shadows. She knew when to vanish. She also knew who to leave behind." Vivian's breath caught. "You're saying she hired you?" Victor stepped closer. "She hired me. Trained me. Paid me. But she's not the one you're dealing with anymore." Suddenly, a click. Behind Vivian. A door creaked. She spun around. Helena. Bruised. Disheveled. Dressed in a plain white hospital gown. And in her hand, a syringe. Vivian backed up, gun still aimed at Victor. "Helena, what are you doing?" Her sister's eyes were glazed, voice faint. "You weren't supposed to look, Viv. You weren't supposed to dig. I was trying to save us. You were trying to take it all for yourself. Just like Mom did. Just like he told me you would." Victor stepped forward. "She's unstable. Let me handle this." Vivian shouted, "Stay back." But it was too late. Helena lunged. A struggle. The gun fired once. Glass shattered. Vivian dropped to the floor, bleeding from her temple. But it wasn't her blood. Victor slumped beside the trunk, clutching his side. Helena screamed. Vivian, dazed, reached for the gun. But Helena got there first. She pointed it at Vivian, hands trembling. "I did everything for you," she cried. "I killed Darren. I let them take the fall. I let him guide me. And still you won't let me have it." Vivian's voice cracked. "Have what, Helena?" "The name. The legacy. The power." For a second, silence. Then sirens in the distance. Vivian looked up, eyes clear. "It's over." "No," Helena whispered. She turned the gun on herself. Vivian leapt forward. "Helena, don't." The shot rang out. It was all over in seconds. When the police arrived, they found two bodies. Victor Kingsley, dead by gunshot. Helena Lockhart, self-inflicted. Vivian was taken in for questioning, but surveillance and forensic evidence confirmed everything. She was cleared within a week. And then, she disappeared. 3 months later. A press release hit every major outlet. Vivian Lockhart had dissolved Lockhart Holdings. The billion-dollar empire her father had built, dismantled piece by piece. Assets sold off. Foundations repurposed. No interviews. No farewell tour. Just one quote in the final statement. Justice is not silence. Justice is the echo of truth. Even when it destroys the walls that protected it. No one saw Vivian again. Some say she moved to Europe. Others say she changed her name. But one thing is certain. She did not inherit the mansion. She left that to the last person who tried to save her. Detective Riley Monet. And as Riley stood inside the now empty Lockhart estate, gazing at the cracked frame of the family portrait above the fireplace, she noticed something odd. A note, tucked beneath the floorboard. Written in feminine script. He was never working alone. Check the cellar. There's one more name you missed. Riley's face hardened. She turned, flashlight in hand, and descended the stairs. The end. Or the beginning. If you loved this story, subscribe for more crime thrillers. Drop a comment. Who do you think hired Victor Kingsley? Share this video with someone who loves dark mysteries. Turn on notifications so you never miss more deadly stories.